Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 71st episode of Dragon Quest Slime Time, a Dragon's Den podcast. This is Pendy.
And this is Osnerivar. Pindy, what are you doing in the closet?
We are interviewing a skeleton today, but I can't find him. I heard people often have a lot of skeletons in their closets.
Not literally, you bonehead. It just means you have a lot of dark secrets. I hope you find him. I love DQ5 and I have a bone to pick with him about it.
Yeah, me too. Though I do agree with him on a couple of points. Maybe the game didn't have enough meat on its bones for him?
Maybe he didn't find it humorous enough. It is a sad game in many parts.
His video review at least tickled my funny bone and caused my spare ribs to ache sometimes.
Oh, I think I found him. Oh, wait, there's no response. It's just a corpse.
Hey!
Oh my goddess, you scared the meat right off my bones.
Yeah, and I'll have you know that we skeletons have nothing to hide. We tell it like it is.
I feel it in my bones that this will be a good interview.
Joining us tonight, we have a skeleton, aka Mr. Skelly Bones of the Bone Zone.
Hey!
Tonight we're going to talk about Dragon Quest V and Skelly's video about it.
But before we do that, let's bone up on our guest.
Where did you come up with the concept for your username? And do you prefer to go by Skelly or a skeleton?
You can call me Susan if it makes you happy. But, yeah, you just call me Skelly. Everybody likes skeletons, and I figured better to start off on the right foot. Start the channel with a good, strong start like being a skeleton. So that's how I came up with that.
Nice. So how did you get into Dragon Quest?
Well, it all started with the 1 and 2 combo cart on the Game Boy Color back when I was a little kid. And then years later, it was Dragon Quest VIII on PS2. And then more recently, I tried Dragon Quest Builders 2. And, you know, all that music and the characters and the art style and stuff, it got me wanting to try getting into the series, like, properly. And that's how I started this whole series.
What's your favorite mainline game in Dragon Quest so far?
Might be 3, the Super Nintendo version. That was pretty good.
Yeah, 3 is pretty great.
And you don't have to set aside months of your life to play it like with 8.
Yeah, it is sort of pick up and play, although I've done that with 3 before, and I'm not super familiar with it, so I forget where I'm at.
Yeah.
So how about the spin-offs? Or have you played any of those yet?
I totally did. I've played Dragon Quest Heroes 2, and I played Torneko The Last Hope on PS1, which I absolutely adored that game, and I made a video about it too.
Nice.
So all the DQ games you haven't played yet, which one do you look forward to the most?
It might surprise you to hear this because I totally changed my stance on it. It's 11 because my brother is a much bigger fan of the series than I am, and he has complained so many times that 11 is just too easy, and I look at it differently. I think people have been grinding for levels for however many years that Dragon Quest has been a thing. 11 is just a chance to sit back, relax, and enjoy the cool story and not worry too much about a crippling difficulty.
That's the way I felt about it when I played it.
Yeah, and plus they have the harder difficulty settings that you can do as well if you want more of a challenge. So
yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah,
I actually did that first, and it was super difficult, and then the next time I played it, I just sort of sat back and did the easy mode, and that is the beauty of the game. You can just choose whichever we want.
Yeah, that's actually how I feel about Resident Evil 4 Remake right now. When I play it again, I'm doing standard.
What's your favorite monster in the series?
I like the Golem. Just a really simple, recognizable design, and he's just a cool, strong dude.
he is. And what about your favorite character in the series?
Well, used to be the hero from DQ8 just because I really liked his design. It's got to be Torneko now.
Good choices. Yeah, that's one of my favorite hero designs as well. And Torneko, like, you can never go wrong with him.
Yeah.
And obviously has a lot of fans with all the spin-off games he has and all the times he shows up in cameos.
Yep. I wish more of those games had fan translations.
So do you have a favorite mechanic in any of the games, like monster collecting, the job classes and casinos, mini games?
Not particularly, but there is one little mechanic I always liked because it's pretty unique to DQ. I haven't seen many other games do this, and it's using an item that you can equip, like a staff, to get special effects like that.
Yeah,
I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm thinking Dragon Quest, I don't know if it's the first game to do it, but it's one of the first games that probably did that in RPGs.
Yeah.
Because when did they start doing that? I want to say 3 was the first time you could do that with weapons, possibly.
No, I feel like that was there from the start. I might be wrong, though.
I can't remember. I'm not that familiar with the Erdrick trilogy as compared to the rest of the series.
Yeah, because like in the remakes, there's additions and stuff like that. But I think like the original one, there's no weapons that you could use as like an item or armor that you could use as an item. 2, I don't think so either. 3, definitely.
Yeah, the Magma Staff comes to mind.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of things added in the remakes that you don't realize took forever to get there in the original like games along the way, but we can mention some of that later.
Right.
Yeah, so we've come to know you as a regular in the Dragon's Den Discord now. How did you discover us?
It was right around the time that I was playing Dragon Quest Builders 2, and I decided to try doing this whole video series on DQ, and I thought it would be really cool if there were a community of people to share these videos with and get some conversation going, and found the perfect place.
Nice. And first of all, before we get into the meat of the interview about your videos, I got to say I love them a lot. I've been able to watch them since the beginning, since you started sharing them at the Den. The creative humor that you have in them is always such a joy to watch. And it's been a fun ride as you've gone through every Dragon Quest game up to 5 so far, which is going to be the subject of our interview since you recently just did a video on 5.
Sure did.
Spoiler warning, there will be spoiler talk about 5 in the interview, just so everyone is aware.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so how long have you been doing the videos, and what was the first game you did one on?
Been at it for around a year now, around a year and a half, and naturally the first place I started was DQ1, and I almost gave up. I almost gave up right at the start because I started with the NES version and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, man.
Yeah.
So as I said in the video, I switched to Old Faithful, which was the 1 and 2 combo cart that I grew up with on Game Boy Color.
Yeah, those versions are still really solid in my opinion. Even though the Switch and mobile are slightly more streamlined, I feel like you can start with the Game Boy Colors and have a good experience.
Yeah, and that only takes you like 8 hours to beat the first game, so
I know, right?
Yeah, you can do it in a sitting. Like that's what's great about it.
The speed runs are insane. I don't know if you've seen.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of those. And there's some wacky things that people do to influence those speed runs. Like there was I think there's a Dragon Quest 3 speed run where they had like the card on a hot plate or something really funky like that. Like all sorts of stuff.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, you heat it up and I forget the technical details, but it has something to do with modifying the RAM on the cartridge and you can do all sorts of crazy stuff like that, like pulling the game out, throwing another game in, and then putting another one in, and it's like it's like a rabbit hole to fall down through that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So for this video, for Dragon Quest V, you open the video by showing how you chose which version to play. And I think it's funny because the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo version didn't cut it for you with its graphics. And that's ironic because the major complaint about it back in the day was that its graphics were barely above the Famicom NES level of graphics, unlike 6 that would go on to have some of the best looking graphics on the Super Famicom. So what did you think of the graphical presentation of 5 on the DS, which is what you chose to play?
I'm actually really glad you asked that because I wanted to talk about it a bit in the video, but I just couldn't seem to find a good spot to squeeze it in there. And I should have said it in my video on 4 too. I really like how in the DS version there aren't any, this might sound strange, there aren't any straight lines. Like when you go in a building, it's all kind of jagged like the walls. And I really like that because it makes it look more natural. It doesn't look it's really hard to explain. Do you get where I'm coming from with that?
Like it doesn't look too artificial?
Yes, that's what I meant. It's not artificial.
Yeah, that's an upgrade that came with the PS2 version because the DS world, like the floor plans and building models and all that they're pretty much just the PlayStation 2 version, just lower quality and smaller. Like if you'll follow a map for the PS2, it's the same as the DS version for the most part. And it's in some areas it's a big difference from the Super Famicom version.
Oh yeah.
So I noticed you saw your story before you played the game, the movie. I know you covered it in the video, but what did you think about the movie?
I think it's one of the best video game movies ever made, which is not a tall order considering some of the trash like video game movies that are out there, but
that's not a high bar.
Yeah, but it's really good. Like I love it now. Such a shame that I can't get it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I see where someone could say that about it. Like for a movie about a video game, it is kind of a unique approach, and I think even though I personally don't care about the ending, I think you can appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what did you think of the ending? That threw a lot of people off at the time. Me myself personally, I've come to appreciate it, but it is very divisive among the fans.
Yeah, I can see where people would say that. My first time watching, I thought the ending was an absolute mindfuck, but second time watching it through, and it's a classic case of you appreciate it more on your second time. Mm-hmm. It's it's the part where, and it sounds corny, but it's the part where Lucas says that, it's always been real to me because I can't really explain that. It's too much of a heartfelt, childhood memory kind of thing. And you can't really explain that, but you understand where he's coming from. And I really appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I was on an interview with Dragon Quest Poppy, and he said pretty much the same thing. He liked it because of that.
Yeah.
I get that. I think it's valid for that alone.
Yeah, and then when you go and watch it the second time, you get to see all the foreshadowing that you may have missed. Where they kind of give you clues here and there that it's not what it seems. It's the Gertrude like appearing out of nowhere and some glitches and a whole bunch of stuff.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Even the second time through, when Gertrude like showed up and started doing his thing, and the English voice actor for him, I laughed my butt off.
Oh,
so I was like holding my head, like, what is going on, man? I'm freaking out, dude.
Yeah, it's not the voice that you would think would come out of Gertrude.
No, it's not.
I was not expecting Steve Bloom to be like, you must save the world. It was like, oh my God. And I noticed that you liked the dub too. Speaking of Steve Bloom, I also really liked it. Are you a fan of Yuri Lowenthal at all that you mentioned in your video? I was just curious because I'll be seeing him this summer to have him sign my Japanese special edition copy of the Blu-ray. That I've got the voices of Harry and Gertrude so far that have signed it for me.
Well, that's great. I'm happy you'll get to meet him like that.
Yeah.
I love the English dub. It has the classic, kung fu movie style dubbing where it doesn't always line up with the mouth movements, which I've always been fine with. And I always liked Yuri Lowenthal specifically because I played a lot of Persona 4, and he's the voice of one of the characters, Yosuke. Yeah.
Okay.
So you seem to gravitate towards Laja the most in your video. So was he your favorite character in the movie?
Absolutely. Like, I can't even question it. Like, I love it. It's not by a huge margin because I love so many of the characters, but Laja, he is just some next level fun to watch for me. He's like the Joker to me. Just really entertaining.
Yeah, he's the way they portray him in the movie is pretty funny. He's just pretty much batshit insane.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Wish they could have portrayed that, reeled back a bit on that chin though, because holy crap.
Yeah, that was hilarious in the video where you're like, hey, I think we need put the censorship blur there. We need that. Because it was a bit much in the design. So I remember in the video that you talked about him in the movie versus him in the game. And I was surprised you weren't impressed with him in the game. I mean, I know he's not as dynamic as the movie's going to be, but like with 4 and 8, I appreciate how he shows up in multiple parts of the game. It's one of the more fleshed out antagonists that the series has. I honestly wish he had stayed as the final boss instead of what we got.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And in terms of the Dragon Quest series, he is definitely one of the better villains. But I grew up playing Final Fantasy, and to be frank, I experienced much better villains than that. So I just don't think he left much of an impression on me in the game.
Okay, no, I understand that. So in the video, you have a very funny moment about like, oh my God, the price for this, what is going on? But I guess you were doing some research and found out it wasn't quite that bad. It's just someone probably just trying to get more than they really should have for what it's actually worth.
Yeah, that's usually what it is, and that's the Amazon price is. I just looked at it myself, and there's one on there for $500.
Oh, God.
But I just like I know that 5 is usually the most expensive one, I think it's just because it's a lot of people's favorites. I keep my eye on it because I've always wanted to pick up another copy of 5, maybe for my son one day. It's usually about 200, usually 175 to 250, somewhere around there.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe. I used to buy copies of this game to give out to friends like for Christmas and stuff, just to get them into the series. And like if you
good one to start with.
I clicked on the product on my Amazon page and it said you've bought this 4 times in the past. Would you like to buy it again? It's like it's $200 now, and I'm like, no, I don't think so.
And I thought 6 was even worse because there were less copies of it out there, but I didn't realize that 5 was typically more.
It may be that 6 is actually technically rarer. It's just these video game collectible video game prices is just a crapshoot, really. There's no it's hard to get population reports for these things, and a lot of people do not price things according to rarity. They price things according to you have a lot of people talking about 5 as opposed to 6, so it may just be supply and demand fuckery. Who knows?
Oh, okay. Yeah, and once COVID hit, the market just went crazy go nuts. And Skelly, I loved how you used the skeleton with the booze imagery following the realization of the price that you had found too.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Not that it was surprising, but it still hit pretty hard. And using the Amazon price, that's just a bad habit I need to get out of, because that's where I do all my shopping. Because if a little piece of elderly advice for those of you looking to buy old used video games: shop around. You'll find better prices elsewhere.
Yeah, usually. Sometimes you just gotta wait.
Yeah, but if you wait too long, it might just get even worse. This is why I've always been okay with emulation.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go into that too much here, but some of these games are well, I just mean me personally. It's like some of these games are just going to become inaccessible eventually, and it's like they're not leaving many other options for people to even play them other than emulation. Like we've got 1 through 3 and all the others on Switch and stuff, but specifically the Zenithian trilogy, unless you want to play the mobile version, which some people just absolutely refuse to do, even though I think they're pretty good versions of the game. Unless you want to play those, you don't have any other option. But what did you think of the darker tone of the game?
It's funny you say it like that, because I look at it as one of the happier games.
Really?
It depends on how you look at it, because the way I described it in my video was really positive ups balanced out by devastating lows, and that's what makes it so compelling. Like, you get married in 1 second and you get turned to stone in the next, and it's a good balancing act,
Yeah, I have to say I agree. It gives you that catharsis. I'm not one to cry over fiction much, but I get a little misty eyed at the end of 5 every time I play it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right when it comes to the roller coaster ride that you go on. You're in the beginning and you're palling around with your friend Bianca and everything's cool, and then like, your dad is dead, big explosion, he's on fire. Oh my God, what are you doing? You're a slave now. Oh my God, what the hell? You escape, yay! And it's all sorts of ups and downs, which is great.
Yep.
And I noticed when you were talking about the bride choices, you joked about pronouncing Deborah as Deborah. Is that something you came up with yourself, or had you actually seen the Puff Puff Hour review of the game where they actually joke about that?
Unfortunately, I didn't see that, but I will check it out now that you mention it. What made me think of that was because Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball Z and all that, and in Dragon Ball Z there was a character named Deborah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I've seen, or I've listened to all of Puff Puff Hour a long time ago, and I think they were making the same reference.
Oh,
right.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's the Demon King, so like the Demon King Deborah. That's why that's a perfect reference for Deborah.
Nice.
So, if you ever replay the game, would you ever be tempted to pick anyone else other than Bianca? Because it seemed to be the obvious choice for you. I know it's the obvious choice for a lot of us.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I said in the video. She's the only character you're given some kind of rapport with. So how could you be comfortable with picking anybody else other than for replay value? Which goes back into the movie where he spoilers by the way. He actually talks about, I think I'll pick Nira this time. But when he's in the game, he's like, oh well, the natural choice is Bianca. There's no fighting that, right?
It's so funny because I do this all the time, and I'm sure it's a common thing in Dragon Quest fandom in Japan. So every time I replay 5, I'm gonna pick Nira, or I'm gonna pick Deborah. I'm gonna pick somebody new. And then you get to that point, and then Bianca, you start traveling with Bianca, and she guilts you into marriage. It's like, oh well, I can't say no to Bianca.
Yeah.
It just happens every time.
And then you don't want to break poor Crispin's heart either.
Yeah.
Because there's that whole little sideline going on. You're like, oh well, you think Crispin and Nera would be a better choice than the hero and Nera. But me, I'm a Deborah man. Once they introduced Deborah, her character is just absolutely hilarious. It's just all that stuff about being abusive, and she softens up like throughout the whole time you have her in the game. Like she goes through a lot of character development, which is great.
I saw a comment about that saying that Deborah was probably the best wife to pick in the DS version, and I might like to experience that if I ever play it again.
Yeah, I would honestly recommend her over Nira personally. But while the movie is still being talked about, her character in the movie was far better.
Oh yeah, totally.
If I were ever going to remake DQ5, I would take all the elements from her and use your story and put them in the game.
Absolutely. Like, she's so expressive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like they gave her something to do and made her like they made her seem sweeter. I guess the sweeter personality. It's like, give me a reason to want to marry her first, and the movie sort of does that. But what Pendy mentioned character development, and that's something that gets showed off in the party chat if you marry Deborah. But all the characters have some pretty unique stuff to say in party chat. What did you think about that feature?
I think the party chat was great, and it makes me all the sadder that it was left out of the DS version of DQ4.
So sad.
Yeah, I don't blame them. It would have cost a lot of money, and I would like to see, like, Bianca's a strong girl and all, but Deborah's like different personality wise and also strong. So I would like to see some guy say something offensive or annoying and see what Deborah would have to say to that.
Yeah, party chat is definitely a good reason to marry Deborah. I know this is about 5, but while we're speaking about 4, I just want you to know they do have the party chat in the
mobile version.
Yeah, the mobile version. Yeah.
I know. I heard.
And there's actually a newer hack of the DS version where you can insert the mobile chat now.
I saw that too. I actually got permission from another YouTuber to use his footage of that because I didn't feel like going through the trouble of trying to figure out how to get that implemented right.
Oh, no blame.
Yeah, they used to have like this complicated patching process. I put a IPS patch up on the internet somewhere, but anyway, this is about DQ5.
Right.
Well, and speaking, going back to DQ5, what did you think of the monster designs in the game? And can you explain the, if I'm pronouncing this right, Touhou reference you mentioned? When researching your video, I realized that I'd seen that video before, but I did not know about its shoot 'em up origins or shmup.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's okay if you want to pronounce it Touhou because that's a good meme.
Oh.
And the monster designs, that's just classic Toriyama. It's like really great expressive designs, and the animation, like I said in the video, I think it's a little better in this than it was in 4 on DS. And as for the Bad Apple reference, that's just the name of the song that plays for that shadow animation that everyone's seen. It's the name of the song is Bad Apple. I think that's the name of the video itself. And there's a monster called Bad Apple. I know it was very Galaxy Brain joke. I was getting lazy at that point.
No, that's all good. That was fun to kind of research that and be like, oh, I remember this video. It's one of the best videos I've seen that have that kind of music. It's just really nice shadow art, and I didn't realize that it was also based. And doing more research, I didn't realize it was based off an actual series of games as well.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of the monster recruitment in this game?
I feel like I can feel you wincing as you say that because you already know I'm not a huge fan of it. Yeah, which is, what, go watch the video. But something new I found out is that the mobile version of 5 adds some mechanics to make it a little better, the monster recruitment.
Yeah, the monster magnet.
Yeah, I heard about that in a comment, and I'm sorry, I just can't take mobile version seriously. Like, there was no way that was going to happen.
I feel you. Yeah, that didn't come with the release, the launch of the mobile game. They added that a few years later. I think around
really.
The time, yeah, I think around the time Your Story came out. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That is interesting.
I remember when it happened because it was years later, and all of a sudden there was an update on Google Play for DQ5, and I'm like, what game hasn't had updates in years? What are they doing? And I checked online, and I think up until that point in Japan, it had been accessible via a promo code. But with Your Story, they just added it to the game. I'm not that part may not be 100% right, but yeah, it was not there at launch.
Right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and something that I always did with monster recruitment is that I never went after specific monsters. Usually, I just I'll get what I get, and then I have the other human characters. But with the exception of multiple replays, I go for your favorite recruitable monster every time, and that's Mason, that golem.
Oh yeah,
because holy crap,
he's easy to recruit.
Yeah, he's easy to recruit, and he is probably my best character in the whole damn game. Besides maybe he's like my VIP among all the characters. He's the best.
Yeah, Golem's OP. If you can manage to get a few of those, you can just sweep the game.
Yeah, I was surprised he could use the Falcon Blade.
Yeah, he can equip a lot of good equipment, swords and armor and stuff like that helps out a lot. Like, I always take him to the end of the game. He's usually like my end game party.
Mm-hmm.
So are you a big Castlevania fan? I noticed you referenced it in your video. And also, on a side note, what do you think of the Netflix anime?
I've played Castlevania ever since I was a kid. I always was really into Symphony of the Night and Aria of Sorrow, the Metroidvania, as people like to say.
Oh, okay.
The Netflix anime, I liked season 1. Spoilers again, by the way, because Dracula was such a cool dude, especially in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
But I feel like in what the DVDs call seasons 3 and 4, I think they were just struggling to keep it going. Like, it got really lost and confused and didn't really know where to go, and I just didn't like them as much.
Okay. Yes, season 3 meanders a little bit, but overall I was a big fan of it. Now, I remember you were talking about, distinct lack of skeletons in it. Which I was like, yeah, I can understand that. You know,
Yeah, they didn't
Skelly
bring in
being upset.
skeletons until like the beginning of season 4, and I was like,
Ooh.
skeletons are the first enemies you fight in any Castlevania, so what the heck took them so long?
Yeah,
It must
it's
be
like
a pain to animate or something.
Yeah, it's like if they did like a Dragon Quest anime and they didn't have the slimes appear until like episode 20 or something like that. It's like,
ridiculous.
What? It's the mascot of the damn game. Put him in.
Yeah, unacceptable. Oh, on a side note, I'm amazed that, because it would have been such a good topic, you didn't put anything in here about the PS2 cover having the wrong colored slime.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I thought that was hilarious. The whole Toriyama forgetting certain details, important details. Let's forgetting, colors, characters. That's his thing sometimes. Like you said, he's your typical scatterbrained manga artist from time to time.
He is on some goofballs.
Yeah, forgets about whole characters in Dragon Ball.
Yep.
But yeah, so I understand that you felt there weren't enough music tracks in the game. I specifically remember that from the video, because at first when you said you had criticisms of the music, I was like, hold up, what?
Yeah.
But I do understand that to a degree. So do you want to go more into that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily that there aren't enough music tracks, because there's plenty of music. It's just utilized badly.
Right.
They say that there's a saying in the game industry that if you can create, I don't remember exactly how many seconds, we'll say 30 seconds of compelling gameplay, you can stretch that out into the length of a 40-hour game. You can't do that with music. I can't, if I had a pie chart, it would be like 70 or 80%. You can't have the same 5 tracks for that 80%. You've got to utilize all the music that you have so that the player's ears aren't getting bored. I heard the battle, town, castle, world map, and dungeon themes just constantly, all the time. I was like, oh god, it's this theme again. Like,
just wait till you get to DQ11.
Oh, I've heard that soundtrack isn't great.
Well, I think it's the same thing. It's the tracks are fine the first 10 times you hear them. But that is very much an old game thing, and I agree with you, especially with modern games. I feel like there's not much excuse for that. But I don't know what it is about the older DQ games. It's never bothered me. It never occurred to me that I was hearing it that many times, and maybe that's probably just down to me. Like, I'm sure that there are plenty more people like you out there than there are like me.
Yeah. By the way, did you say DQ 8 or 11?
11.
Okay, because if you said 8, I was going to take back what I said. I love that game soundtrack.
Yeah, it has a good one. It's a really good one.
Yeah, just 11 is very long, and you get like the same battle theme just over and over and over and over in the world map as well. But now, if you do play 11S, you can actually add in some tracks from 8, so you can mix it up a bit, which
That's
helps.
Cool.
Yeah, because the vanilla soundtrack for 11 already didn't have enough tracks from previous games.
Oh, right. I did see a meme about, I think, one of the battle themes that made me laugh, so that'll give me some entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, and like with Ost, I just never had that issue either with having to hear the battle themes or the town themes too much, and that probably has more to do with me being an old man and growing up on these games, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay.
It's hard for me because I listen to game music on the reg. It's really important to me, but your game music has to be exceptional for me to listen to it again and again and again and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's why I like remixes of game music, like OCR remix and stuff.
Oh yeah, I've been doing that since I was in high school.
I know, yeah, me too. And I wish it's a crime how few Dragon Quest remixes there are online.
Note to self: look up Dragon Quest remixes.
There's a few out there. I'll actually send you a link to some maybe after this.
Please do. I'll check them out.
Nice. Now, something I noticed you actually loved in this game was the transportation modes. Did you enjoy all the different options that the game had? And FYI, on the side, I do love your little dig at Final Fantasy VIII while discussing the floating castle. I'm with you all the way there.
Yeah, my buddy's gonna hate that because he loves 8. He grew up with it. It's his darling. But yeah, I like the transportation methods. I love when you get advancing levels of, I guess, effectiveness, convenience in your transportation methods. And yeah, flying a castle around and parking it where you want, and then going inside the castle and doing whatever, and then flying it wherever again. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and because you're going to play 6 next, and they do a really good job with transportation in that one too. They have some very interesting modes as well.
Good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it feels like along the way, like Yuji Horii just throws random stuff in there to see, like, well, we've had a castle, we can.
Oh well, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh yeah, you'll see.
But what do you think about the TNT boards in the game? I noticed you didn't cover that in the video.
It's really funny that you call it that because when I played 3, it was a fan translation on Super Nintendo, and I'm assuming they kept the original name, which was Pachisi. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Pachisi.
But I do like Treasures and Trapdoors. That's pretty funny. Maybe a few too many trapdoors, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I liked it in the first time I talked about it. I liked it, but in 5, the fact that there's not a whole lot you can do to influence it was getting a little dull to me. It's just like this is as basic as Candyland here, so I just didn't really feel like a need to talk about it again.
Yeah, and you know that's fine. It's not pertinent really to a review on the game.
Yeah.
I think it's because 5 was my first game, but I fell in love with the minigame immediately, and I've loved it in every iteration. Like in DQ10, it's called Sugoroku.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's Sugoroku. I think that's actually it's a Japanese name for a game like that. Like there's
All right.
There's a few games like that in RPGs, but yeah, I've loved it in every iteration that Dragon Quest has ever had it. But yeah, in 5, there's even a few moments where I think you can permanently alter your attributes, like your stats.
Yeah, that was in 3 too.
Right. Yeah, because I'm thinking of 10 where it's all temporary, because like you can change your class on the board and stuff.
Oh wow, okay.
On a side note, wasn't Fortune Street based on this or something?
Not really. Fortune Street is more like Monopoly, but with a stock market. It's actually pretty great. It's actually pretty great, honestly. I would if you still have a Wii hanging around, you know,
I do.
Anybody who could play the game with you, like my wife and I created a monster by introducing the game to my wife.
Oh no.
I never win at the game anymore, ever.
So I take it is in English?
Yeah, Fortune Street for the Wii was translated in English. It's the only one we've gotten. There's quite a few of them out there in Japanese.
I'll keep that bookmarked, and I might pick that up.
Yeah, and it's Dragon Quest characters and monsters and Mario.
Yeah, I saw. Hey, wait, I thought one of these had Final Fantasy characters.
Yeah, the PlayStation versions do.
I didn't know it went that far back.
But we have not gotten any of those.
Yeah, they had recently, the most recent one I want to say was PlayStation 4, and it was like the 35th anniversary edition or something like that, being the 35th anniversary for the series, not for that. But they used Final Fantasy characters there as well. Yeah, it was weird. Because my wife is from South Korea, and I was actually lived over there for a few years, and they actually released it in South Korea, but nowhere out west, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
But we did get one of them. We did get the one on the Wii, and there's been, like Oz said, there's been ones on previous systems as well, earlier PlayStation versions and so on and so forth. There's more. There's like a mobile version. There's been a lot. I want to say there's at least a handful of them.
It started out on Super Famicom.
Oh, okay, that's when it started.
Right.
So in Dragon Quest V, you get to the final boss. What did you think of his design and the music for that final fight?
Oh, you mean old Piccolo? Okay. Some things I could say about that, because I really didn't say much about it at all in the video, unfortunately. At first I thought he was speaking in gibberish, and then my eyes adjusted and I could see, he's doing this weird font that's hard to read and kind of a pain, honestly, but that was interesting. And I like the design of the original form, because that's classic Toriyama.
I know.
And then the next Ford came along and I was like, is his flesh making a dress? Like, what is going on with that space in between his feet down there around the area that shall not be named? Because it looks like a flesh dress, and it was really upsetting to me.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest does this thing, the same thing that Dragon Ball GT did, where like the first form looks nothing like the second form.
Right.
Whereas Dragon Ball Z, they looked like more of a natural progression.
Yeah.
I have to wonder like what that like is that, because I know with Dragon Ball GT, Toriyama just did some of the basic character designs. He didn't do the story. So I wonder like with Dragon Quest, when he designs the monsters and the bosses and stuff, like I wonder where that disconnect comes from, because I think 5, let's see, that was what, 92, 91?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
That would have still been, I don't remember when DBZ came on. I'm just trying to think of what time period it was along his the development of his artistic style and his process. But I do wonder where that disconnect came from.
Yeah, as much as I like 5, that is one of my least favorite final boss designs. designs. His second form, like the Piccolo guy, he's okay, he's cool. But then when he goes into his final form, I'm like, no, what is? No.
Yeah.
Now I have a question for you guys.
Ooh.
What do you think of the music? Because I didn't like it. I thought it was dull and meandering. It didn't hit as hard as it did in a 4 for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The music wasn't as impressive as some other final boss themes that Dragon Quest has had over the years. That whole final boss fight was kind of unimpressive all around for me personally. What about you, Aust?
So we're just talking about the final boss music,
Yes,
not the overall music.
Just the final.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can't even play it in my head. Like all okay, so the entire DQ5 soundtrack, it's like I have it in my head. I can switch it on whenever because that's like my favorite soundtrack from the series. But I can't even recall that right now. I know it's called
an impression, huh?
Yeah, it's like I think the name of the track is even like it's Satan. Isn't that just the name of the track? I'd have to look. But I don't remember it. That's got to be my review of it.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah,
Final boss theme should be one of the most memorable themes in the game to me. Like I remember the final boss theme to Legend of the Dragoon.
Yeah, you're right. Like think of Dragon Quest 1. Like I said, I'm not even that familiar with the Urgic trilogy, but that boss theme is just like so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the final boss theme is called Satan.
That's what I thought.
Satan.
Oh my God, we're back to the DBZ again.
Hey, if you play it backwards though, it's much better.
Play it backwards.
Yeah.
Is that like a reference to something?
Yeah, if you play in the 80s, they said if you played rock music backwards, it would say Hail Satan. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so after you beat Nimzo and then listen to the boss music, did you do the post game at all?
Unfortunately, no. I was just I didn't hate the game, as I say in the video, but I was pretty much over it at that point. And I know there was some post game content, and I might touch it sometime in the future. But
yeah, there's not like a whole lot to it. Like there's a TNT board that's nice. You can recruit some fun characters. Like there's like a little tiny what's the name of the huge character, the Behemoth Bjorn.
Yeah.
Oh wow, really?
There's a tiny Bjorn that you can recruit.
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
Okay.
His name is New Bjorn.
Yeah.
And you can also, if you keep going, you can also recruit a tiny Stark named Starkers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got that problem where it's like at that point, okay, you recruit them and then you have no use for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a bonus boss. It's Stark from 4, who's sleepy, and you wake him up, and you can get certain things from him from beating him in so many turns. But that's about it. But when you play 6, I'm not gonna say what it is, obviously, because I don't want to spoil it for you. It has a much better and fun reward for doing the post game. So keep that in mind. If you end up liking that game, I highly recommend doing the post game for that, just for the little twist on the ending that you get if you do it.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
And I can't remember if you mentioned this in the video because it's been like a week since I watched it and I forgot to rewatch it for this podcast. But
you're fired.
It's okay.
Did you? I can't remember. Did you touch the Nick Nakatory at all?
I did. I didn't really get the point. Like nothing happened with that. I put a bunch of stuff in there. I didn't really understand it, and I just kind of stopped messing with it.
Yeah, there's no real point to it, I think, other than I guess it's like an early version of having a trophy room. You know, how video games do that sometimes. You know, on the DS version that you could go online and create your own treasures and show them off, or not online. You could do it through like a almost
ad hoc.
It was like a Street Pass.
Yeah.
Before Street Pass, and of course I'm sure nobody in America ever did that except for like the people in New York who would meet up for this exact sort of thing.
It's a funny note about that. I accidentally initiated that whole treasure making thing, and it wouldn't let me cancel. I had to be like blank for that, and it was kind of a pain to get out of that whole thing. It took like 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I've never completed it either, but not yet anyway. From what I can tell though, there's no real reward for fully completing the Nick Nakatory.
And was that added in the DS version? It wasn't in the original?
It was in the PS2 version, I believe, because there are knickknacks in the PS2 version. I just haven't gotten far enough to find the actual place to put them. But no, it was not in the Super Famicom version.
Okay. So what is your overall impression of the game?
Probably my favorite question because I have the perfect way to explain what I mean. I said in the video around the end that I think Dragon Quest V is a better game to remember than it is to play. And I wish I had thought of this at the time, but I'll say it now. Undertale. I love that game. It's one of my favorite games. But I've played it so much, which is the specific reason for that game in particular, that I don't enjoy playing it anymore. But I have all of my memories of it, and it's a fantastic game to remember. So while I didn't enjoy playing DQ5 as much, the stuff that happened in it, I'll always like remembering that.
And, we may actually be somewhat to blame of that. And by we, I mean just Dragon Quest fans in general, is because I know I've done my fair share of this because I adore this game. We all talk about this game particularly highly.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Especially before 11 came out. It was often championed as the best written in the series. And it's a little bit of that. I think we've just overhyped it to a degree because it is, a Super Famicom game that came out pretty much when the console launched. So, the original was quite limited. And even with the additions in the remakes, there's only so much you can expand upon the original concept. I just don't think anyone can live up to the amount of hype that this game in particular has, even especially amongst Japanese fans. If you look through some of that, this is a much beloved game.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a theory, but I think a lot of the reason for that is tons and tons of people remember it very fondly, but they haven't played it recently when they're older and they're more discerning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that. And it's a very different perspective for me because this was the first game in the series that I played, and I didn't actually come to Dragon Quest until I was about 23.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I actually bought this game almost exactly 10 years ago in 2013. So I would have been actually 24. I lied. But yeah, and I think for me, one of the big things that I loved about it is I had never played a Dragon Quest game before, but all throughout this game, I could see its DNA in games I had played as a child because Dragon Quest had, obviously inspired JRPGs and video games in Japan in general hugely. And I don't know, it's almost like it was like a rekindling or a rebirth of my childhood nostalgia for a game I hadn't played in my childhood, and I wish I had now. And I think that's probably why I like it so much. And I can see how if I'd actually played it as a kid, I would have definitely have a much stronger attachment to it. It's very easy to get blinded by nostalgia, and I think that's probably a big part of why people champion this game so much.
Yeah.
And plus, for its day, compared to everything else that was out there, it's still pretty damn impressive. There weren't a lot of games out there doing, the kind of things it was trying to do with a generational story. So that was very cool what it was trying to do back then.
Yeah, I said in my video on 3, Yuji Horii was kind of a trendsetter. 3 was a prequel to the series at the time, and no game had ever done that before.
Right, yeah.
He was doing all this cool stuff.
Yeah, and with 4, 5, and 6, he tried to break new grounds with storytelling via mechanics, through the chapter system, and this one with the generational story and things that happen in 6 I won't spoil for you, but you're definitely right about that. We've already mentioned this quite a few times, so but when I go ahead and ask it, when are you going to cover DQ6 next? When do you plan to do so? We got any thoughts about that?
This goes back to another thing I said in the video where I fully admit that playing through these games one after the other for a series of videos may not be the best way to enjoy them because it's going to get me tired of them. And people were saying in comments maybe pace yourself. You will get exhausted with these if you play them like that. So I think for 6, I might make it as a subscriber. What do they call it? If you reach 10,000 subs, you'll do this video next. Something like that.
Milestone.
Because I think I need a little more time before I move on to another mainline entry. And as for 7, oh god, how did they turn a Dragon Quest into a 100-hour-long experience? Jesus Christ.
And the crazy thing about 7, that it doesn't even really have many side quests or mini games. That's all meat, no filler.
How did they do that? Well, you know what? Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
There's a lot of that in that game because it's just a lot of little stories. You go to your new area with new problems to solve, and they just have a lot of problems to solve throughout tens of hours, hundreds of hours, not hundreds of hours, but tens of hours of gameplay in it.
Yeah, that's kind of how they did it in 8 too.
Mm-hmm.
Each new village had problems to solve.
Yeah, they started that. He started that with 7 and sort of popped up quite a few times later. Actually, with 7, I would recommend. It's totally a game where you can just pick up every month, do a chapter, and then okay, put it down, and then come back to it because for the most part you're not going to get lost because it's just you got a new chapter to do.
Right.
Go back.
Yeah, and you'll see with 6 and especially with 7 is that there's a story mechanic of where you're going to get to a new area, but then you're going to do something different with the new area, and that's why that adds a lot of hours to the game, especially with 7.
Gotcha.
So eventually, once you get through the mainline series, do you plan to cover any of the side games too for your videos?
Well, I'm actually kind of doing those in between main entries. after DQ2, I did Torneko, the Last Hope, and then I did Dragon Quest Heroes 2 after 4.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe next I'll do DQ Monsters or Rocket Slime. I've been really wanting to try out Rocket Slime finally.
Oh, Rocket Slime is so much fun. That's one of my favorites. I was sad we didn't get the 3DS sequel.
I know, right? What is it with being a DQ fan in English? How many times do we hear the term not released in English?
Too many times.
More times than I can count.
Oh, you can't. I always go back to the story of being such a huge fan of the series back in the NES days, and I bought 3, I bought 4 as a little kid, and then I got a Super Nintendo, assuming there'd be more Dragon Quest, and then it just never came, and they skipped the entire generation, and I was like, oh, it was so disheartening until I got to the internet age and was able to look back and see what actually happened.
Right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's like because the Super Nintendo era was when some JRPGs really started to take hold here, like Chrono Trigger, and I feel like if they had maybe released 5 here at that time, it might have really seared the brand into the market in the West, in the minds of the market, because if you can't latch on to a market when the demographic is at the prime age to incorporate it into their nostalgia, then you just miss out on an opportunity, I think.
Yeah, that hurt the series so much, missing 5 and 6 and the remakes of 1, 2, and 3, because that could have gotten a lot more people into the series and could have lined people up for it to get more popular in the future, like with Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy didn't completely blow up until 7, but you still had a fair amount of fans that it built over those Nintendo and Super Nintendo games that it had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The silver lining, we may not have gotten DQ5, DQ6, remakes of 1, 2, and 3, but at least we got Chrono Trigger.
True, and that was some Yuji Horii goodness and some Akira Toriyama goodness as well that we got out of that game. Having the best people of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest come together for such a great game was fantastic.
One of the best games, I would argue.
So what other videos do you have coming up next that you can tell us about?
Well, next up is going to be on Deep Rock Galactic, Rock and Stone, if that means anything to you.
I heard an ooh from Austin. I heard an ooh from Austin.
I still haven't played. You know me, and you're confusing me with Austin King. God.
Oh my God.
I'm never going to get out of his shadow.
I'm so sorry, dude.
No, it's not your fault. There's a guy online I played DQ 10 with, and he thought I was Austin for a while. Deep Rock Galactic. No, I haven't played that, but I've followed it because it looks like it's a game that I'd be very interested in.
It's a fantastic pick up and play game. And to my friends at work, I am describing it as, and I have my arm up in the air as I do this, dwarves in space.
Yeah, you mixed fantasy with sci-fi and you got me.
And after that, I've got some fun videos planned. I've got one on discussing the anatomy of a battle theme, and there'll be a little bit of Dragon Quest in that, because my whole life I've played turn-based RPGs, and when I was a kid, one of the things I wanted to know the most was, is the battle theme good? Is it going to be irritating by the time I get through the end of the game? So that'll be fun to talk about. And I've also got a video planned on video game commercials, old ones, when they were crazy and fun.
Oh, Zelda rap?
Yes, I think that's in there, yes.
That'll be good. I'll definitely watch that.
That sounds fantastic. But unfortunately, that's it for this episode of Slime Time. We'd like to thank Skelly of the Bone Zone for joining us today. We'll have a link to his Dragon Quest V video in our show notes.
God damn you guys for making me do this. Taking a step away here real quick. Until we meet again!
And on that note, we'd like to say we're a non-profit podcast. We make no bones about it. We won't half-inch your hard-earned gold when we can offer you quality content about the game series we all know and love for free. But if you do have any extra gold that's just completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, searchable wall sack, or treasure chest, and you would like to donate anything to a website that's been supporting Dragon Quest fans for over 25 years, stop by the Dragon's Den at www.woodus.com/den and click on Support This Site. Woodus has owned and maintained the Dragon's Den DQ fan site for decades. He personally edits every YouTube version of our podcast, and he fully appreciates any donations to help keeping the servers running.
The Dragon's Den website also features an Amazon affiliate link. If you click the link and then make a purchase, a small fraction of the sale will go to support the Den. It doesn't cost you anything. Throw them a few bones, won't you?
And if you have any comments or questions for the Dragon Quest Slime Time podcast, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at DQ Slime Time.
Consider joining in tons of Dragon Quest discussions discussions at the Dragon's Den forums. Find it from the Dragon's Den main page or at woodus.com/forums. You can also find me and other rabid Dragon Quest fans through the Dragon Questers, Infinity Strash, and Dragon Quest Tact Global Facebook groups. We promise we're nice people, and we won't make you slave away for the Order of Zugzwang.
Or come hang out with us and tons of other hardcore Dragon Quest fans on the officially unofficial Dragon's Den Discord server.
We'd like to thank everyone that made this possible, including Osnerivar, Woodus of the Dragon's Den, and the Forbidden Art of Necromancy.
Thanks to Amanda Lepre and the Descendants of Erdrick for allowing us to use their music for our podcast. Descendants of Erdrick is a video game tribute band from Austin, Texas. Check them and their album Advent at www.descendantsoferdrick.com or on Twitter, D of Erdrick, and check out Amanda Lepre streaming on Twitch.
Our thanks to Dwayne Bullock, our wonderful graphic artist and Dragon Quest fan, for making the awesome artwork cover for this podcast. Dwayne was one of the hosts of the original iteration of the Slime Time podcast. You can check out more of his work at Dwayne Art on Instagram or his website at dwayneBullockArt.bigcartel.com. We even have a Slime Time t-shirt you can buy with artwork by said resident artist Dwayne. See the link for it in the show notes.
Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast.
If you're looking for more Dragon Quest Slime Time, check out our earlier episodes on Dragon's Den, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, YouTube, and more. And check out our brothers, sisters, and skeletons in arms over at the Slime Time Side Quest and Tactfully Die podcast. Their latest episodes are available now.
Bye, everybody.
Dragon Quest Slime Time, sliming off.
This is Gertrude for Slime Time, reminding you all that you must complete your adventure.